Somebody contacted me there about buying a property at auction versus buying by private treaty. What's the big difference?
Hey, it's Terry Gorry, and this is the Terry Gorry Podcast.
The huge and critical and significant difference between buying at auction and buying by private treaty is that all of the checks that you need to carry out, all of the due diligence, all of the research, all of the checking of title, all of the checking of planning, all of the usual things that you're going to do before you buy a property, any sort of a property, must be carried out before the auction. So the auction contract is drafted by the vendor solicitor. All of the documents are available beforehand, before the auction. Everybody has the same chance. You can raise your inquiries, you can make inquiries, you can carry out as much due diligence as you are capable of. But the bottom line is, when the rubber hits the road, you go into the auction, you are faced with a contract that is at that point non-negotiable. And so if you are successful, you buy the property on the fall of the hammer. In other words, you sign the contract, you're obliged to sign the contract, and you're obliged to pay the 10% deposit when you sign the contract. You need to be absolutely crystal clear about that before you go to the auction, because you could be in for a rude awakening if you think otherwise. In the normal course of events, in a private treaty situation, that is a non-auction purchase, your solicitor can engage with the other solicitor, with the vendor solicitor, can ask questions, raise queries, and indeed try to negotiate some additional contract terms or special conditions in the contract. And they may be acceptable to the vendor's solicitor, and if they are, well and good, they'll be included, and you will have, or your solicitor will have, to a certain extent, shaped the terms and conditions of the contract. But the one at the auction, you know in advance, a number of weeks in advance, all of the information is available to you. It's non-negotiable. The papers are there, the title documents are there. You need to carry out your checks and balances, as I say, and you need to be absolutely clear that if the hammer falls, and if you're the highest bidder and you've met the reserve, then you're going to be the owner of the property, and you could be sued for specific performance to complete the contract if you're unable to complete. So if you get a rush of blood to the head, you buy a property, you haven't had finance arranged, you've basically made a fundamental mistake. The bottom line is, you need to sign the contract, you're obliged to, you must pay 10%, and if you can't pay the 90% in order to complete the sale, then you're on the hook for it. You can be sued for it, and you can be sued for specific performance, and you can be sued for damages, and the vendor can actually sell the property to the underbidder for a lower price and sue you for the difference. So that is the significant difference between buying by private treaty in the normal way and buying at auction. Now, that is the legal position, and that is some factors that you need to consider when it comes to the legalities and title and so on. There's another aspect, though, that you need to consider if you're going to an auction. My advice is actually to stay away. Don't go to the auction because of the human element. The human element is something that I have observed over a number of years. I've been at a good few auctions down through the years since, say, 1986, when I started buying property and selling property first. And I've been both a purchaser and a bidder and a vendor at auctions. And I have seen some stuff at auctions, but the bottom line is this, and one takeaway you should take from this video is that no matter what you decide beforehand, no matter what you decide in terms of your bidding limit, the likelihood is that in the white heat of battle in an auction room, it is incredibly easy to get carried away. And therefore, you're probably going to exceed whatever you decided beforehand. In fact, you would be a person of remarkable fortitude and discipline if you didn't get carried away. So my advice to you is, if you're interested in a property that's going for public auction, you should send along either a solicitor or an accountant or an estate agent or some professional who is familiar with the situation, to whom you're going to give instructions beforehand. And you will give specific instructions as to the top bid that you can afford to go, and that's it. Don't change your mind. So you have the benefit of making your mind up, valuing the property well in advance of the auction, and you then have the further benefit of having somebody who is going to bid on your behalf, who are not caught up emotionally, are not going to get carried away. They're going to act on your instructions and they're going to make the bid. It's easy, as I say, to watch the TV programs and you see people at auctions and they're putting the hand up, putting the paddle up and so on, and doing all sorts of stuff. But the bottom line is, it is incredibly easy to get carried away. Human nature is human nature. And if you have your heart set on a particular property, it's very easy to simply slap in another bid, and before you know it, you've gone 20 or 30 grand over your limit, and the property could well be knocked down to you.
Thanks a lot for listening, and make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode.